For me, kayak fishing is simple. A boat, a paddle, a fishing rod, and unspoiled water. The fish are big. The chaos is beautiful. It's angling's addictive final frontier, and I'm hooked. I'm Drew Gregory, and this is Hooked on Wild Waters.
Drew Gregory's Hooked on Wild Waters has been brought to you by Jackson Kayak. We make fun. Z-Man Lures, the science and art of fishing. Smith Optics. Smith is fishing.
Today we are on the border of Georgia and South Carolina on the Savannah River. This is one of the most scenic places in all of Georgia. You probably remember the Chattooga River episode a few seasons ago where we caught the Bartram's bass is the headwaters of the Savannah River, and of course, you know how scenic that was. It continues its way down here right at the fall line, Spanish moss, rocks, rapids, shoals, all kinds of different types of grasses, and all kinds of different species of fish. I cannot wait to get on the water here. One of the wildest and fishiest geographic zones in the southeast has got to be the fall line area. You've got coastal plain flora and fauna mixing with the Piedmont. It's just very unique, rocks and rapids and shoals, but big fish, warm climate, and somebody who knows it all too well and has fished the Savannah River in this area is Mr. Gene Jensen. And you, believe it or not, have never fished this section?
Not this section.
So how excited are you today?
I'm pretty excited. I mean, I've got buddies that fish it and everything else. I had a Hobie PA-14 before when I lived up here before, and it just couldn't handle the rapids, so I just never came here.
All right, well, let's quit wasting time, Gene. Let's get out there and see if we can catch some of these big bass. All right, let's do this. Too much to choose from, too much structure here. As soon as we put in, I mean, the weather is looking gorgeous today. It's sunny, bluebird skies. The only question is gonna be, where are the fish? Are they gonna be on the banks, in the rocks, in the grass, in the wood? There's just too many options in this river to figure it out. But I know one thing is for sure. Whenever you figure them out, they're gonna be in that sort of zone the rest of the day. So what I did first is I started fishing the bank, right on the bank. Let's just see what happens there. I've been throwing this buzzbait around the grass, and of course we all know largemouth bass, smallmouth, any kind of bass loves hydrilla. But no luck in the grass. So I moved my way out more towards the middle, towards some rocks and shoals around the island, continuing just to look and find any sort of pattern. I'm drifting my way down, sort of getting into the shoal now, so the water is a lot shallower, and anytime you find shallow water, you can actually work your lures even faster. You can make even more casts. You don't need to sit there and just kind of bump the bottom. If they're there, they're gonna be aggressive and feeding. And sure enough, I cast my buzzbait right there in this push water for this shoal, and this largemouth bass just annihilates it. Oh, good fish. Woo! Woo! Big fish, dude. It's a nice smallmouth. It's a largemouth. This fish is fighting hard like a smallie, but it's a largemouth. And she crushed this buzzbait. Homemade buzzbait for the win again. A little bit more. Wear out a little bit. This current is strong and they fight so hard. She crushed it, man. Open up. There we go, baby. Yeah. Look at that. What a healthy fish, man. Gorgeous. God, I can't believe how hard these fish fight. You know, a lot of times these fish that I call them teenagers. They fight harder than the biggest fish because they're, honest to God, they're in their prime. Some of those biggest bass are so old and lazy, they don't fight nearly as hard as these 4.5 pounders like this one. That's a good fish. Just a few minutes after I catch that fish, I look over my shoulder and even Gene is hooked up now. This could be the zone the fish are in.
That's what I'm talking about. I want you to notice on this fish, I'd made 2 or 3 casts with a whopper plopper, and when I stopped that whopper plopper, I got bumped, but he didn't take it hard. So I immediately picked up a Texas rig creature bait, threw it in there and drug it real slow on the bottom. Getting bumped like that lets me know they're there, but they're not active. They're not super active. So I slowed down, I matched his mood. He may be small, but man, it's fun to catch him in this river.
You've probably noticed that so many of these large rivers across the country have canals right alongside them. Well, why was this canal built? What's the purpose? I wanted to learn more about this, so I talked to Juliana Shurtleff to learn more about the Augusta Canal, why it was originally built, and what it's used for today.
The Augusta Canal was dug in 1845 for 3 reasons: hydropower for mills, drinking water for the city of Augusta, and boat transportation so that the boats could safely bypass the rapids on the Savannah River. And still today, we are the oldest industrial hydropower canal in the United States. We use it today. We are the Augusta Canal National Heritage Area, so we are affiliated with the National Park Service. So now today, it's protected about 2,000 acres of land around the canal and the canal trails. Today, we still do boat tours. So this boat we're on today is a replica Petersburg boat that would have carried crops from up north in Georgia down to the canal and eventually to Savannah for production. We are inside an 1877 textile mill with a great discovery center, hands-on museum for interaction. You can learn how textile industry was in Augusta. You can learn about hydropower and how it's still operating this mill today. And that hydropower is being sold back to Georgia Power, and it is a clean, renewable resource as the water goes back to the Savannah River after producing power. So check out our website, augustacanal.com, for all the info on events.
One of the hardest parts about fishing a river that's so scenic and has so much structure to fish is honestly keeping yourself moving downstream at a rate needed in order to get to your takeout in time before dark. And that's what we're struggling with today, but we got to a section that I consider more of a run. There's no clear-cut big shoals and pools and tons of giant rocks to fish, but there's still fish in this section, and Gene found it out. He found a little subtle spot right near an island. He threw his crankbait in there and caught a really, really beautiful smallmouth bass.
Big smallmouth, big smallmouth. Woo! Look at that gorgeous smallmouth, guys. I'll tell you real quick what I was doing. I switched from a creature bait. We were in a little bit rougher water, and I was moving a little bit faster, so I grabbed a square bill, little tiny, I guess it's a Lucky Craft square bill. I don't even think they make that color anymore, but I grabbed it because I knew this square bill crankbait. It's not like just crankbait's weird. Look at I brought out nice, big, healthy smallmouth. Just a gorgeous fish.
As passionate as I am about exploring and fishing wild waters, Gene Jensen is just as passionate about teaching folks like you out there how to catch these fish. He's got an incredible YouTube channel. It goes by Flukemaster on all social media. If you go check it out, go subscribe to his channel, I promise you, the tips and tactics he gives you is going to help you catch more fish in wild places.
Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen. We're going to talk about fishing in the fall, the chatterbait, how to deep crank out of a kayak, how to tie a drop shot rig. And what I want to talk to you today about is punching. Guys, you just witnessed my new PB. I just broke double digits for the first time.
Further downstream, I noticed we're getting to another beautiful set of shoals and islands, and I'm suspecting the fish are going to be in that same zone where we caught them upstream. And I was right. I'm slinging my buzzbait near the headwaters of the shoals and the first sort of pools, and I get bit by this really, really solid largemouth, 4 pounds plus. It's a hard fight, and I get it all the way to the boat, and of course, I'm sure it's happened to all of us, gets off nearly where my hands could touch it. And I was frustrated, but I know the fish are in this zone. We know it because they're holding true to the pattern. I just keep slinging the buzzbait around. About 10 casts later, wham, this fish nails it. There's one. Smash that buzzbait too. Can't tell what it is. Oh, it's a good largemouth. Golly. How many largemouth have we caught that have been this size or lost this size? It's unreal. Good fish. Look at this guy. He's not ready yet. A gorgeous fish. There we go. Woo! Man, these things are so fat and healthy. Already feeding up for the fall / winter bite here. As you can see in this river, everything just looks so good. But if you just keep casting, eventually you will run across some solid fish like this. So another healthy 3.5, almost 4-pound fish. I cannot wait to see what's downstream because I know they get a lot bigger than this. So let's let this one go. Given the fact that the Savannah River goes straight through Augusta, Georgia, the second largest city in all of Georgia, got me thinking about how the river can handle such population growth. So I visited with Stephen King from Georgia Power, and he told me a little bit more about how environmental stewardship actually leads to economic growth.
Georgia Power is very intentional, very purposeful about how we do plug into our communities. Our leadership found a long time ago that a healthy economic climate, even at a statewide level, equates to a healthy business climate. So if you take that same concept and you kind of distill it down into the community approach, we take that same philosophy and we really plug in. Environmental is a big piece of kind of the live, work, play aspect. Not only does it add that recreational value to a community, it also adds value from a business sense. We have a lot of business here that live and work on this river, and so it's an asset to them, and the business standpoint, it's an asset to us from a recreational standpoint. So that's one piece of kind of our broader approach around economic development. Uplifting our communities is really what we're after, and whether or not that's kind of the river behind us having this is an outlet for folks, whether or not it's developing our workforce, whether or not it's developing our economy, it's really serving the community and be a citizen wherever we serve.
Well, Gene and I have definitely had our high points and low points during the day. And during a few of those low points, we had a chance to kind of look around at all the wildlife. And this is the reason you go to Wild Waters. This is a good chance for me to remind all you guys out there, take out your phone every once in a while, get some photos, not just of fish, but the incredible scenery and environment that Wild Waters provides us. At this point, Gene and I have been fishing without a bite for probably a couple of hours. My confidence is very low. I just can't understand where the fish have gone. What has happened, with this pattern? The only thing I can think to do is find the most remote part of this river possible. So I worked my way into this really super scenic section with a bunch of islands, and basically I'm in a small creek now. I'm moving pretty quick down this creek and down some rapids, and I just toss over to my right with a chatterbait, and finally, bam, I get hit. Fish on. It's not a big one, but it's definitely caught in about the most scenic spot. Come here. This is not the biggest fish in the world, but if you look around, look up and down and all around, you really can't catch a fish. Come here, come here. In a more wild place than this. I mean, this is gorgeous. And that's why you fish Wild Waters out of a kayak. Catching a fish with beautiful markings like this in one of the most beautiful sections of the Savannah River reminds me why I'm hooked on Wild Waters. And it also reminded me a little bit about what we've been through this season and how many scenic and wild places we've gotten to fish. As we kicked it off down in Panacea, Florida with Robert Baker, catching amazing redfish trout, and we definitely saw one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever experienced on Wild Waters. Then we moved inland to one of the most scenic spring-fed rivers in all of Florida, the St. Marks River, right there in St. Marks, Florida, and with one of my favorite people to fish with, Gene Wilson. Now, she knows a thing or two about catching giant largemouth bass in spring-fed rivers. And then, one of the few times I've done this, I actually left the RV behind and took off to the air, flying all the way out west to Mason, Texas to fish the Llano River with my good friend and fellow Jackson Kayak and Under Armour teammate, Johnny Aljets. We caught a multitude of Guadalupe bass and largemouth bass post-flood, which shows you the resilience of Wild Waters. We headed back to my home state of Georgia, where I got to fish with Mr. Kayak Bass Fishing, Chad Hoover. It was a tough day out there, but we found a fish on bed in late May, which is really crazy. And we were able to also fill our time by catching a multitude of different species. It was just cool to be on the water with another pioneer of kayak fishing. Then I head to West Georgia with my good friend Tim Perkins, who's been a part of River Bassin since the very beginning, and he shares the same passion for getting dirty and finding those unpressured fish no matter what the cost. I cannot wait to get back on the water with that guy. I would definitely encourage you guys to get out there with some friends and fish these wild places, because they're just not the same if you're alone. You need to share these experiences because it creates a unique bond. And that's what I was able to do this entire season. It wasn't just the scenic places, it wasn't just the fish, it was the people I was with and those friendships and bonds. They're definitely one last main reason I'm hooked on wild waters.
Drew Gregory's Hooked on Wild Waters has been brought to you by Power Pole Shallow Water Anchors, Swift, Silent, Secure, Tennessee Trailers, the only name to have behind you, Yak Attack, Rigging the Dream, Bending Branches, Pretty Smart Paddles, Orion Coolers, Never Lose Your Cool, 13 Fishing, Make Your Own Luck, Ray Marine, specialists in marine electronics,